the people in Israel. I will always stand behind the country of Israel, the one and only Floyd Money Mayweather. In Israel, I will always be here for you guys when you guys don't have a voice. I will always be the voice for the people in Israel. I will always stand behind the country of Israel, the one and only Floyd Money Mayweather. In Israel, I will always be here for you guys when you guys don't have a voice.
See, when Yahushua said, "For what if a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his soul? For what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" It should be a picture of this nigga Floyd Mayweather right next to that verse. And before I begin, I want to give all honor, all praise, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushai Bahasham Arachak Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and bishops of the great millstone that rule well. And as always, peace, blessings, and salutations unto the tabernacle of David, the old for elect, that are scattered abroad across the four winds of the earth. So, it ain't just Floyd Mayweather. You know, it's a lot of highly esteemed, influential jakes, you know, with money that are famous, that are in the same position. You know, they're pretty much under, how could I put it? You know, in other words, they can't get out. You know, they're contractually binded under slave control. And the powers that be that write their checks is who they're binded to. And as long as they stay apart and stay on code and you know, do as they say, you know, Jake will continue to enjoy the peanuts that falls from the master's table. All right. And in turn, Jake get to flaunt, you know, the peanuts that they made from their master's table. They get to flaunt it back in the face of, you know, Jake that don't have it that way. That's not as financially fortunate, that don't have the same wealth. You know, when this dude, he you know, gets a cameraman and has him film when he's, you know, counting his bands, counting his stacks, you know, panning the camera to get, you know, his garage with all his latest collected luxury vehicles and so on and so forth. You know, that's just peanuts in comparison to his overlords, his handlers. All right, and this is what they'll do. They will give you rewards as long as your soul is theirs. They'll gift you. They'll reward you all day. The scriptures say a gift destroyeth the heart. But behind the scenes, Jake is miserable. You know, Jake is highly insecure, and this is why they live behind their materialism. You know, the luxurious lifestyle. But they're really not happy. They're enslaved, man. This dude is a high-paid slave. That's why he has to come out of retirement to fight a rematch that nobody wants to see. You know? He still got to get back in that ring and kiss the ring. If they want him to get back and fight and make them some more money, that's what he got to do. And in turn, eventually they reward him. Because I remember sometime like maybe last year, the beginning of last year, because, you know, he's so overt when it comes to his showing his support for Amalek. You know, he's a public figure, he's famous, so whatever he do, the public is gonna catch wind. And him openly showing his support for them is definitely gonna be publicized. This dude, he had see his own people, our people, Jake, they're in poverty, right? They don't have anything, but he was willing to utilize his little wealth that he have to send support to the IDF that's over there bombing hospitals, bombing schools, places where there's children, elderly people. There's a one-sided event going on over there, and he took the side of the people that are over there being the aggressors, and sent the damn jet with an aid package. He sent a jet over there with aid packages of food, medicine, bulletproof vests to the IDF. So this lets you know right there that they own this nigga, and because he's done such a good job, kissing the little hat, kissing the wall, openly showing his support, they're rewarding him for it. So and now, because he's he's sucked in with these people, he has to catch what comes with that. That's why he had that incident in London. I think he was shopping somewhere in London, and you had an angry mob of people trying to get over to him to try to hurt him because of his open support of Israel, the Zionists. And Amalek, they have a very strong demonic force with them, and that's why the scriptures say the ways of the wicked seduce of them. Let's get that in Proverbs. They have a strong demonic presence and influence over these people in these different industries, whether it be the music, entertainment industry, whether it be the athletic world, but they control it all, and it definitely shows. Proverbs 12:26. It says, the righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the way of the wicked seduceth them. All right, they're definitely under psychosis, man. Where they basically they just have a way of controlling these prominent figures of society. They're under a straight up bond. They're under total control. And that's why, Jake shouldn't be looking up to these dudes. You shouldn't be idolizing them. Even Yahushua said, and he was talking about them exalted scribes and Pharisees that were, they had the appearance like they were holier than thou. But this is what the Lord said about people you hold in high esteem in this world. Just like during that time. Luke 16:15, it says, and he said unto them, you are they which justify yourselves before men, but the Most High knoweth your hearts. For that which is highly esteemed among men is an abomination in the sight of the Most High. And these people, they esteem them because of their status and their riches. Floyd, yeah, he's an excellent a fighter in the ring. He's highly skilled. He's undefeated. All right, never been beaten. He's a champion in multiple weight divisions. And he was supposed to have retired undefeated. Was at 50-0. He was supposed to walk up into the sunset. But that lets you know right there, they control this dude. He's a slave. All right. They decide when he gets to lay down or when he has to come back. They decide whether he can get endorsement, whether he can, get these business ventures. You got to go to the enemy. You're still a slave. The word esteemed hupselas in the Greek, and it says lofty in place or character, high, lofty, exalted on high, with an uplifted arm, i.e. with signal power, metaphor, eminent, exalted in influence and honor. It's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He has different business ventures. He owned multiple mansions and homes in Babylon, got a bunch of luxurious vehicles. So a lot of, you got Jake that look up to him. He was able to sell himself in his fights to generate a lot of pay-per-view viewership. But all I did was make the establishment hundreds of billions of dollars. He made hundreds of millions. They made billions. All right. And in turn, they control this nigga. So he has to worship the ground that they walk on. Just for making it possible, for basically selecting him as the token nigga in the athletic world to make the kind of money that he's making. All right. He has to give his soul over to Amalek. So now they're giving this nigga rewards and shit. This is the same entity that'll have a nigga like Meek Mill, right? He's supposed to be a street nigga from Philly turned rapper, who made it out the mud, and he set up his own little label and all this stuff. Street nigga from Philly, but they got this nigga, he's linked to Diddy. All type of rumors about what him and Diddy may have done, and then they got this dude humiliating himself on the damn tennis court, bunny hopping on camera. And you better believe they got all types of film, all type of receipts, tapes on all these artists. And that's why they can't speak out about certain issues that happen amongst us. Because once you take that gift, you can't say a word. Your soul is pretty much being exchanged. You can't stand on nothing. But he'll stand up for those devils. And they ain't lacking or wanting in anything. But he'll show them support. All right, it says to set the mind on to seek high things as honors and riches, to be aspiring. And Jake's like Floyd Mayweather. He's an example of that. Those that's looking to make it big or want to live the so-called American dream and be successful, they look to niggas like him for the inspiration of being honored and having riches. But he's an abomination, man. He sold his soul. All right. Let me get this in Job 27. And guys like him, these moguls like Diddy, Jay-Z, all these different prominent, high-paying slave jakes that are famous. All these niggas gonna have their head down for at least the first 100 years in the kingdom. They gonna have their heads down for at least the first 100 years, man. Job 27:8. For what is the hope of the hypocrite, though he have gained, when the Most High taketh away his soul? And then once you die, once the Lord take you out, you got all that, but really the estate, all right, these corporations that own you, they usually take the money back. They make money off of your death and capitalize. Because that's how greedy these devils are. So this is the price you pay for worshiping Mammon. That's why the Lord said you cannot serve two masters, for you will love the one and hate the other. For you cannot serve the Most High and Mammon. Floyd, he serves Mammon. That's why he has to basically bow down. If you want the Mammon, the devil grants you the Mammon. He'll bless you with the Mammon, but you gotta give him your soul. Like when the devil tempted the Lord when he went up to that mountain and he told him, if you want the kingdoms of this world, hey, bow down and worship me. And Yahushua set his ass straight. But not these niggas, man. They got the spirit of their wicked, evil, fraternal twin brother E on them. They want that instant gratification. They want the reward now. They don't want to suffer patiently and wait upon the kingdom for the Lord to glorify us. You know? So, hey, good riddance, you know? The Lord said, woe unto you that are rich now, for you have received your consolation. So basically, a consolation, we know that that's a loser's prize. To make it big like Floyd Mayweather and the Diddy's and the 50 cents being worth hundreds of millions when these devils make billions and trillions, that ain't nothing, man. That's the loser's prize. We talking about trillionaires, man, multi-billionaires. Jay-Z might be worth a few billion. His net worth in combination with Beyonce's, they worth for a couple billion. But that ain't nothing. These corporate billionaires, they're worth tens and hundreds of billions. And we ain't even beginning to talk about the international banking families, the cabal. All right, and guess what? We gonna switch places, man. We just waiting with patience, because the Lord's gonna come down and he's gonna dethrone them and take everything out of their hands. They're gonna vomit it up. But Jake want to sell out now, you know. Luke 6:24, but woe unto you that are rich, for you have received your consolation. All right, and so Floyd, despite all the boasting and, you know, the showboating that he does, he really has no reason to be proud. All right? Because you're in a bind, and you would never admit that to the world, because you be in a world of trouble. How they made an example out of Kanye, you know, and every now and then, you know, this nigga, he get off his rocker when he's off his meds, and he get to telling, and then, you know, they catch his ass, put him back on the meds, and then they make him clean everything up. They make an example out of you. You know, they take everything from you. They'll start putting out receipts on you. Have you in a scandal, you end up like Diddy. Or even worse. Because they own you, man. And they got everything on you, and they'll leave it hanging right over your forehead. And we got all this on you if you act out. If you misbehave, if you be a good boy. All right? You see what's happening to that dude Drake? You know? He decided to sue UMG and got his shit dismissed, and now all of a sudden, he's getting lawsuits now, thrown back at him. And there's probably finna be some females that's finna come forward, and they finna make an example out of him, just like they just did Diddy. He got to that little battle with Kendrick, and Kendrick pretty much exposed some industry secrets that I'm pretty sure everybody in that industry already knew. Yeah, man, it gets real like that. And that's why we're in the best position to not have to, you know, be among that. We're actually free, even though we might seem to be poor in this world. But like it says in James, have not the Lord chose the rich of this, the poor of this world that are rich in faith? He told the church of Smyrna, I know thy tribulation, you know, and your poverty, but thou art rich. You know? So we're rich because we have this understanding. We have the knowledge of the Most High, and we have our faith. And we're prisoners of hope, man. And hey, we rather be enslaved to the hope of Yahushai than to be a slave to this damn devil that'll emasculate you, humiliate you, you know, keep you binded, you know, under contracts so that he can enslave you and control you You won't be able to stand upon nothing, have no integrity, no moral principles. Yeah, man. That's why the scriptures say, envy not the glory of a sinner. You know not what his end shall be. And there's more power on the oppressor's side. This nigga with all that money he got, he's not comforted. Jake catching hell in that industry. And there's really no way out of it. All right, let me get this in Sirach 10, and we'll close out in a little bit. I ain't gonna make this long. It's Sirach 10 verse 9, and it says, "Why is earth and ashes proud?" And in Floyd, yeah, he has accolades. He did accomplish, great things in the sport of boxing, but he is a proud nigga, and he hides behind his accomplishments and materialism. All right, but that's just to hide behind the fact that he really ain't happy on the inside. He's still empty, just like all these other Jake entertainers and celebrities. All these niggas are empty on the inside. It says, "There is not a more wicked thing than a covetous man, for such a one selleth his own soul to sell, because while he liveth, he casteth away his bowels." You could picture Floyd Mayweather right next to this verse. Him standing up making this statement right here.
I will always be the voice for the people in Israel. I will always stand behind the country of Israel. The one and only Floyd Money Mayweather in Israel. I will always be here for you guys when you guys don't have a voice.
But rather not his own people, who's the true Israel, the real biblical descendants of Jacob. He'd rather be a voice of support and aid for these devils. That's because they writing his checks, man. All right. You gotta kiss the ring. You gotta kiss the little hat. You gotta take your ass over there and kiss that wall too while you at it. This dude, he got some shame and contempt. All right, in the kingdom, man. But he's an Israelite, so he'll be straight. But this right here is a shameful thing to leave as far as a legacy, man. That's terrible for a legacy. Selling your very existence to Amalek. Nasty work, man. But anyway, I'm gonna end off on that. I'm gonna give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Shalom.